Hey folks, it's Mary, aka MercyTriumphs, and this is Slow Crochet. Today we are making this style of hat. It is a top-down hat that has corner to corner around the sides and then ends in a ribbing kind of brim. To make this hat, we have some options. You could use a 5.0 millimeter hook, you could use a 5.5 millimeter, or up to a 6 millimeter hook. You could do a 3-weight yarn, a DK yarn, or you could do a 4-weight yarn. I have several examples here, a couple in different weights of yarns, but for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to use a 4-weight yarn, and I'm going to use a 5.5 millimeter hook, which is an eye hook in American terms. So let's get started. For this tutorial, I am using Malabrigo Rios, which is a 4-weight worsted weight yarn. It comes in hanks of 210 yards, and I'm going to use this kind of random one-off colorway, and I'm also going to use some contrasting color with it. So to do this tutorial, to do this hat, you can do it a couple of different ways. If you want to do a contrasting stripe, you're going to need about 15 yards per stripe. So in this hat with the 4 stripes, it took about 60 yards of that contrasting color. Now I am making this out of a 4-weight yarn, a worsted or aran weight yarn, and I am using about 150 yards of yarn. So at the crown, it measures about 6 inches across, and from top to bottom about 7.5 inches, and then side to side about 8. This will fit a standard adult size head about 22 inches wide. If you want to make it smaller, when we do our increases in the circle here, instead of doing 6 rounds at the crown, you'll just do 5. But other than that, the principle is all the same. So let's get into it. To begin this hat, we're going to start with either a magic ring or a double magic ring or a chain of 4 and join into a circle. And for me, I'm going to do a double magic ring. You can do whichever method you like. And bear in mind as I do this tutorial that I do yarn over from front to back rather than from back to front as is standard. That's just one of my little quirks, and it doesn't really change the overall design. So to start off, I'm going to chain 1 to kind of lock in my magic ring, and then I'm going to do a second chain. And these 2 chains are not going to count as anything. After this, I'm just going to do 12 double crochets into my magic ring or into my chain of 4 ring, and I will meet back up with you at that point. All right, I have my 12 double crochets into that ring, 1 and then 12. So we're not going to count that chain 2, but I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that first double crochet, and then I'm going to tighten up my ring here. So since I did a double magic ring, I'm going to tug on it, and then I'm going to tug on that one part that tightened up some, and then I'm going to just wiggle it around and tighten it all up. I do like doing a double magic ring on occasion just because it does make things a little bit tighter, but again, you use the method that works well for you. So now we're just going to create a basic circle. So in order to do that, the first round, I'm going to chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as anything. It's just to kind of give us a little bit of height, and you can make it a little bit loose. For the second round, we're going to do 2 double crochets in every stitch around. That will bring us to 24 stitches. And at the end of that, we will slip stitch to our first double crochet, and that will be our row 2. So again, 2 double crochets in every stitch. So for round 2, we will have a total of 24 stitches. For round 3, let me just go ahead and tell you, we're going to do 2 double crochets in the first stitch and 1 double crochet in the next all the way around, so that we will come out to 36 stitches. The next round, we will do 2 double crochets in the first stitch and then 1 double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. That will bring us up to 48 stitches. For the next, we will do 2 double crochets in the first and then a double crochet in the next 3 stitches, so that will bring us up to 60 stitches. And then finally, to complete our circle for our top, we will do 2 double crochets in the first stitch and then a double crochet in each of the next 4 stitches, so we will then have 72 stitches. Right, I'm at the end of round 2. I have 24 double crochets. I'm going to slip stitch to the top of that first one. I'm going to chain 1 kind of loosely, and then I'm going to start round 3, which is 2 double crochets in the first stitch, 1 and 2, and then 1 double crochet in the next. We're going to repeat that around, 2 double crochets in the next stitch, 1 double crochet in the next, and we will have 36 stitches at the end of that round. All right, I'm at the end of my third round. I have 36 stitches, and I am again going to slip stitch to the top of this first stitch. I'm going to chain 1 up. Now for round 4, 2 double crochets in the first and then 1 double crochet in the next 2. So here's 1 and 2 in that first stitch, and then a double crochet in the next, and then a double crochet in the next. Then we repeat 2 double crochets in the first stitch and a double crochet in each of the next 2. We'll do this all the way around and we will have 48 stitches at the end of this round. Okay, I'm at the end of round 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 48 double crochets, and I am going to slip stitch to the top of that first double crochet. I'm going to chain 1 loosely to go up, and now for round 5 I am doing 2 double crochets in the first stitch, and then I'm going to double crochet in the next 3 stitches. So by the end of this row you will have 60 stitches, or by the end of this round rather, 60 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Here's our increase again. We're going to double crochet twice in that first stitch, and then we're going to double crochet once in each of the next 3 stitches all the way around. I will meet up with you at the end of that round. All right, we are at the end of round 5. We have 60 stitches, and now we are going to slip stitch to that first stitch to close up our round. We're going to loosely chain 1 just to get up to the right height, and now we are going to put 2 double crochets in the first stitch, and then we are going to double crochet in each of the next 4 stitches. So 2 double crochets in the first, and then 1 double crochet in each of the next 4, and we're going to repeat that all the way around. 2 double crochets in the first, 1 double crochet in each of the next 4, and by the end of this round we will have 72 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You can always see that your increase is going to go in that first part of that increase from the round before. So all the increases kind of line up nicely. So again, 2 double crochets in that first, and then 1 double crochet in each of the next 4. And I will see you when we have 72 stitches. All right, we are at the end of round 6. We do have 72 stitches, I just counted, and we are going to slip stitch to the top of that first stitch. I'm going to pull out my loop just a little bit because we're going to measure. So this is the crown of the hat. We are not going to do any more increases, and so for this adult size hat it's going to measure about 6 inches across. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, but this is about the size that I like for an adult sized hat. Again, we are using the 5.5 millimeter hook. If you go up a hook size, it might be slightly larger than that. If you go down a hook size, it might be slightly smaller, but you don't want to get too much outside of the 6-inch mark if you're looking for an adult size hat. So let's start round 7. This is going to be our setup row for the corner to corner stitches. So we slip stitched into that first stitch. We're going to chain 1, and then back into that original stitch that we just slip stitched into, we're going to work a single crochet. In the next stitch, we're going to do a half double crochet. So yarn over, go into that stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over again, and pull through all 3 loops. Then we're going to do a double crochet, And then here for the next stitch you have a choice. If you have done corner to corner before, or if when you do a set of chains to substitute for a double crochet, do whatever you do there. For me, I like to do 2 chains for a double crochet, but many people do 3 chains for a double crochet. I'm going to do 2. I'm going to chain 2. You might chain 3. And then into this next stitch, I'm going to slip stitch. So those are the 4 stitches that we're going to repeat all the way around. We're going to single crochet in the first stitch. We're going to half double crochet in the next stitch. We're going to double crochet in the third stitch. And then we're going to chain 2 or chain 3 if that's your preference. And then we're going to slip stitch into that 4th stitch. So that 4th stitch is kind of that chain 2 and then that slip stitch. Again, we're going to single crochet. We're going to half double crochet into the next. We're going to double crochet into the next. And then we're going to chain 2 or possibly 3. And then we're going to slip stitch into that 4th. And we're going to repeat this all the way around, and I will meet up with you then. You see it's starting to form those nice little waves. I'll see you when we get here. We're coming to the end of round 7, and you should have your chain 2 or possibly chain 3. You're going to slip stitch into that last stitch, and so when you look at it, you should have 18 of these little bumps around. So that is round 7. You're going to have 18 of these sets of 4 stitches, which are the single crochet, the half double crochet, the double crochet, and then the chain 2 or possibly chain 3 and slip stitch into the next stitch. So now we're going to do our corner to corner part. So in order to do this, we are going to either chain 2 or chain 3 depending on your preference, but I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then I'm going to slip stitch into this chain space right up here. So I'm just kind of taking my chain 2 and I'm going to run over the top of these 3 stitches here, the single, the half double, and the double, and I'm going to slip stitch into this chain 2 space. So I've chained 2, slip stitch here, and then I'm actually going to do 2 more chains, or you could do 3 if that is your preference, because now we're going to do corner to corner, which might be familiar to a lot of you. So again, your preference 2 or 3, I prefer 2, but we've chained our 2 up. Now we're going to work 3 double crochets into this chain space. 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to skip these next 3 stitches and we're going to slip stitch into that chain space there, this next chain space. So we have that first kind of square made of our corner to corner. Now we're going to chain 2 or 3 if that's your preference. And in that chain space here, we're going to do 3 double crochets again. And this is what we are going to repeat all the way around. This is our corner to corner kind of feel. So these 3 double crochets should be about the same height as these 3 stitches here, your single, your half double, and your double. So that way we are ready to slip stitch into that chain 2 space, or perhaps chain 3 space. And then again, we're going to chain 2 or 3, and then we'll do our 3 doubles again. We're going to do this all the way around, and I will meet back up with you when we've made it all the way around. All right, we are almost at the end of row 8, which is our first corner to corner row. So in this last chain space, I'm going to slip stitch. I'm going to do my chain 2 up. I'm going to do my 3 double crochets. So let's take a look at where we are. This is where we started our original start point, where we had our first set of single crochet, half double crochet, and then chain 2 and slip stitch. So to get from here to where we started our first set of the corner to corner, we had to chain 2. So what we're actually going to do, we're going to skip this chain 2 area and we're going to go right into where we slip stitched originally. This might be a little bit awkward, but here's where I slip stitched and then I chained 2 up. I'm going to put my hook right into that slip stitch, and I'm going to do a slip stitch right on top to connect that. So let's see if I can get a little closer just to show you. So originally we chained two, we started here and we chained two to start our first part of round 8, that first part of our corner to corner. So into that little chain space there, into that little slip stitch there, we're going to insert our hook. We're going to pull through our yarn and pull it straight through the loop on our hook, so we're slip stitching it. Now we're going to rotate our work 180 degrees and we're going to go back the other way. So chain 2 or 3, and this is the beginning of round 9, chain 2 or chain 3, slip stitch into that chain 2 space from the previous little brick, and we're going to chain 2 or 3 up, and we are going to go around again with 3 double crochets in each of those chain 2 or chain 3 spaces, whichever one you did. So 1, 2, and 3. It's just like the previous round, except we're just going around the other way. Here's our chain 2 space. We're going to slip stitch into that. We're going to chain 2 up, 1 and 2, and then into that space we're going to do 3 double crochets. We're going to go all the way around, and then we are going to switch our work back and forth until we have 8 or possibly 10, depending on the length that you want, 8 or 10 rows of these bricks. So I'm kind of going to call this a brick. I'm going to call this the second out of my 8. I'll meet up with you at the end of round 9. So I'm coming to the end of round 9. I just slip stitched into this last kind of chain 2 space. I'm going to chain 2 up. I'm going to put in 3 double crochets into that chain 2 space. 3. And then I am going to find that original slip stitch space, which is right here, right there, where I had originally chained up to. And so if you are not changing colors, you're going to slip stitch here, pull it all the way through, turn your work around, and you're going to start going back the other way. So you're going to do your 2 chains, slip stitch into the chain 2 space, and then chain 2, and work your 3 double crochets right there. But I actually do want to change colors. I want to give a little bit of definition and texture, so I'm going to still have this work turned around. I'm going to get my hook back in here, but I want my yarn tails to all be on the inside. So I'm going to find again where that place was that I slip stitched, and I'm going to go in from the back this time. And I'm going to get my other yarn color ready to pull that through. So here's my contrasting color. I'm going to pull that through. Make sure I leave a nice bit of a tail down here. So now I'm going to chain 2, and now I'm going to slip stitch into this chain 2 space here, and I'm going to go around again. I'm going to tighten those up a little bit. So yeah, chain 2 or possibly 3, and then put your 3 double crochets into that chain 2 space. So this is the third brick, as I'm going to call it, of our corner to corner set. So chain 2 space here, slip stitch, chain 2 up, you can see more contrast there, and 3 double crochets. I'm going to do this all the way around and keep turning back and forth until I have a total of 8 of these bricks. So here was our setup row. That was round 7. It'll be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 to round 15, and I will meet back up with you there. All right, we are coming to the end of the 8th row or round of those bricks. Here's my last chain 2 space. I'm going to slip stitch into it. I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to do my 3 double crochets here, and then I will slip stitch into that original slip stitch that started this round, and I will turn my work back around. So by the time you're on your 8th brick, so to speak, you should be on the inside of your work. So here's my little slip stitch. Go into that, slip stitch here, and I'm going to turn my work around. So here is where my hat is right now. I did do 2 rows of a contrasting color, but let's measure just to see how big we are right here. So from the crown of the hat down to about where we are, we're about at 6.5 inches, and that's good. So we're going to now do our evening up row, row 16, and then we will start our brim. So to start our kind of evening up row, we are going to chain 1 up just to give us a little bit of height, and we're now going to work into these 1, 2, 3 stitches of our kind of brick, and then into this chain space. So we're first going to work a double crochet into that first stitch there. Next, we're going to work a half double crochet into the second stitch of our little brick. Then we're going to work a single crochet into the top of that third stitch. And now we need to work 1 more single crochet into this chain space. So if you have a chain of 3 rather than a chain of 2, it might be a little bit simpler for you, but this is what I've done, and so that's just how it's going to be. So we have our first stitch is going to be a double, followed by a half double, followed by a single in the top of the double crochet here, and then a single in the top of that chain space. So now we're going to repeat that all the way around. Into our next brick, so to speak, we have a double crochet. Into the next stitch, we have a half double crochet. Then we have a single crochet in that third double crochet stitch, and then in that chain space, another double crochet. So each of these kind of bricks gets 4 different stitches in them, and it's going to start evening out as we go around. We're going to repeat that all the way around. All right, we are coming to the end of the round. I have a double crochet. I'm going to do a half double crochet. I'm going to do a single crochet, and then into that chain space, a single crochet. And now I should have 72 stitches all the way around. Pardon my tails that I'm going to weave in. All right, so now that we have our 72 stitches, we are going to slip stitch to that first double crochet and finish the round, and that completes round 16. Now from here on, we are doing a brim. So if there is a particular style of brim that you like, you go for it. For me, I'm going to do a row of double crochets, and then I'm going to do 2 rows or 2 rounds of alternating front and back post double crochets. So for me, round 17 is going to be just a round of double crochets all the way around, 1 double crochet into each stitch, including that stitch that we just slip stitched into, double crochet there, and then just 1 double crochet in every stitch around, and you still ought to have 72 double crochets for this round. I will meet back up with you there. All right, we are at the end of row 17. We still have 72 stitches here, and we are going to slip stitch to the top of that first stitch. And for row 18, we're going to start by chaining 1 up, and then we are going to alternate front post double crochets and back post double crochets. I'm going to start with a back post around that first stitch, and I am going to try to include that chain 1 from before, so it's a little bit thicker than your standard, but it won't really matter. Next, I'm going to do this is a back post. The first one was a front post. Y'all know what I mean. Front post and back post alternating. So that time was a back post. Next stitch, front post. Then we are doing a back post double crochet, and we are going to do this all the way around. Again, we will have 72 stitches. We will slip stitch to the top of this initial stitch, and then we'll chain 1 up and we'll do another round, and that will complete our hat with 19 rounds, and I will meet back up with you then. All right, we are at the end. I am going to do my last back post double crochet, and then I'm going to slip stitch to the top of this first front post double crochet. I'm going to pull my yarn all the way through. I'm going to trim it off, and then all that is left to do is weave in all of my ends. We are done. So there we have it. If you liked this tutorial, please do give this video a thumbs up. That would be super encouraging. If you do happen to make this hat, I would love to see it. My email address is in the video description below, as is my Instagram. You can send me pictures in either of those ways. So again, thank you so much for spending your time with me today, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!